What's up, everyone? Welcome back. It is NFL Week 3, and this is Tournament Tactics. All right, we are live, and we are back for Tournament Tactics, where we take a look at large field tournament strategies for NFL Week 3, specifically on DraftKings. And I've got what I like to call the three-headed goat all together again. We got Josiah. We got BobbyWow, a.k.a. Bobby Millions. You know me, I'm the geek. And we're going to take a look at NFL Week 3. We're going to look at what the chalk is, and we're going to try to figure out how we can get different, how we can get unique. Now, I want to mention this just at the start of the show. Last week for the show, and we're going to do this again. Not for you live streamers. We love you live streamers. You got to come back and watch it on the replay because we don't see the comments and I can't track them. But we're going to look for who the nuts quarterback is for NFL Week 3. It's not going to be it's probably not going to be the most obvious one. Last week it was Tua, and only we asked the same question, and we're giving out a free month of Sharp App Pro to whoever gets it right. Last week we asked this question, and only one commenter got it right. We had Trevor Lawrence. We had everybody you could think of. Jared Goff got a bunch of guesses. Like, my goodness, he didn't have a bad game. But only one, Skull. Skull got it right. He nailed it with Tua. Skull, I hope you double stack Tua with a bring back. The return of the double stack and bring back last week. That was nice to see. And, hit us up at DFS Army on Twitter, and we'll set you up with a free month of Sharp App Pro. You guys want to check out Sharp App. It's awesome. All the sports betting models, basically all our player prop models turn into sports betting player prop models, and pregame, everything you need, track bets, the whole deal, Sharp App. Check it out. I was just telling Josiah that I used to live in that place, and Marley was in a similar location. He used to play a lot of piano, Big Marley. All right.
I could see him like serenading someone already, like
Big Marl with no sleeves on the piano.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's get into it. So the way we did it last week, guys, is we took a look at the chalkboard, and the DFS Army chalkboard is kind of what we use to help guide our cash lineups and also figure out what to stay away from in tournaments a little bit. And we use the chalkboard to figure out, all right, who's going to be the cash? What's going to be what are people doing on this slate? What's the common approach, and how can we approach it differently? And I'm just going to get right into it at the quarterback position. And an interesting thing that's just popping out to me as I look at it, guys, I'm not seeing like a lot of chalk here, right? But it does look like Josh Allen, Kirk Cousins, Jalen Hurts, the top group. Josh Allen, we just, it helps that when you see these guys in prime time.
Yeah.
Right. So we saw Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts smashing on Monday in prime time. BobbyWow, Josh Allen is 600 above Jalen Hurts. Normally outscores Jalen Hurts on the slate, but he's going to be higher owned and he's a little more expensive. I mean, are you starting your tournament lineups with those guys? Or are you saying, hey, let the field load up on those guys? I'm going to do it different.
Man, it's so tough because those guys have been so good and we know that they can be so good again. So for me, I'm always looking to find a way somewhere else other than the chalky ownership. But there aren't many reasons outside of leverage to get off those guys this week.
Little salary savings. Josiah, I think that it's Kirk Cousins and that game against the Lions that probably stands out the most in terms of just both teams playing really kind of bad defense, good offense right now, hot teams, very high game total, maybe a little under the radar, easy to stack. Kirk Cousins is always easy to stack because they don't throw to a lot of different people. Irv Smith, let's wait till I look for his ownership. That's going to go through the roof probably after last week. What do you think of the Vikings Lions sort of game stacks? I like the way the game stack feels.
Yeah, like I think quarterback this week for me is a position where I'm pretty much going to follow the chalkboard. I have a few places I want to get different, but it's not at the QB position this week. So yeah, like Kirk Cousins, Josh Allen, Hurts, those are going to be my core 3 guys. I'm probably going to try to find 3 more quarterbacks I like. I think Joe Burrow is also interesting this week at lower ownership. I know everyone's kind of against the Bengals right now for good reason, but they're facing the Jets. I'm willing to play anyone against the Jets. So that's my thought process so far.
Yeah, do they lay it on the Jets? Do they put the beating on?
I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Matthew Stafford's another guy. I mean, it's an expensive stack if you put him with Cooper Kupp. That's the real challenge with some of these quarterback combinations. BobbyWow, how do you feel about, hey, everybody loves Josh Allen, but they also love Steffi Diggs. And if you take a look, I think Stephon Diggs is a little bit of danger, right? So my feeling with Diggs is this. Yeah, he popped off last week. We all saw it, and we saw it in prime time, which makes us all want to click the Stephon Diggs button. But Gabriel Davis is coming back this weekend, and Diggs's great games have happened when Gabriel Davis wasn't there, when they're forced to throw to him a little bit more. There was no one else to throw to on Monday night, so he just got all the looks. Is this going to be a little bit of false hope, BobbyWow? Is there risk in Stephon Diggs? He's definitely one on the cheaper side for the stud wide receivers.
I think there's definitely risk. And we've talked about Diggs, several times this season already. The guy is a very solid producer when everyone's healthy, but he's typically not a ceiling guy. When the Bills are all healthy and functioning well, Diggs will put up 15 to 20 fantasy points. He'll put up 1,000-yard seasons, but the ceiling just isn't quite there for tournaments. So yeah, I think certainly he could play well, but for me, looking at that ownership, that's definitely a spot where I'm going to pivot to a guy like Gabe Davis. I think that's a good point.
I'm not even seeing Davis on the owner board as of yet because he's still, there. I mean, 5%. So I think that'll come up a little bit.
Yeah, like definitely as people start talking about stacking more. I think the easiest thing to do is just kind of put Diggs in there because of the last time we saw them. We saw Diggs going off. But I think you're spot on, Geek. The smartest way to play this is with Davis. We've seen what Davis can do. Even coming off of an injury, he's had strong performances before. So I'm not worried about that pairing. I'm okay with having some Diggs, but I'm not trying to overforce it.
If you look back historically, one of the biggest factors, and so this is something we noticed years ago in studying the data from these contests and from NFL games. The WR2 and WR3 are significantly more correlated to the quarterback than the WR1 is. And that seems weird, right? Like, hey, why not the WR1? And primarily it's because the WR1's kind of expected to have a big game. And so that doesn't, when that happens, it doesn't push the quarterback into winning you a tournament territory. One of the things I added to my Geeks Picks notes, my sheet, my cheat sheet that I put out for DFS Army VIPs this week is I started talking about the salary of every quarterback and understanding what it's going to take. Like, Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen, they'll get there because they got the crazy legs. They'll run for a touchdown. Matthew Stafford at 6,500, Joe Burrow at 6,600. They need 4 touchdowns to pass 30 fantasy points. Like, no 4 touchdowns, no 30 fantasy points. No 30 fantasy points, no $1 million, right? That's how these contests work. So when you start to train your mind to think, all right, well, if this guy throws for 4 touchdowns, what's really happening to the team? What are the scenarios? Like Kirk Cousins, I don't know. We've been talking a lot about QB +1, which has been working. Mm-hmm. But do we really want a Kirk Cousins +1?
Yeah, that's the scary part. Like, definitely when Kirk Cousins is in the 600s, like expecting 4 touchdowns from him is his really good days are those 4 touchdown days. That's not something that we expect from him. Like Joe Burrow, you kind of expect him to get 3 to 4 touchdowns, but Kirk Cousins,
get there, but the running game,
he does it, but it's a little bit more of a pipe dream.
The running game stifles it. So it's harder for him to get there because they have good running games and he's such a pocket passer. So there's but if you are going to play Cousins, you probably want to play him with Jefferson and Irv or Thielen. I think that it's almost too obvious to play Thielen and Jefferson. It's too expensive, quite frankly. That stack it's too much money it's difficult to fit it, especially in a week like this. Although we might have gotten some late value information. If you know what? We should really address. I guess it's not something addressable, but the fact that Josh Jacobs isn't traveling with the team for the Raiders,
Huge.
but it's an illness. Illnesses usually don't keep, unless it's the COVID, unless it's the vids. He probably does have the Rona. Every time anybody's sick, I assume it's COVID.
Every time someone sneezes, Geek.
Oh yeah, definitely COVID.
Anything.
I was at the supermarket today. Some lady sneezed walking next to me. I was shooting daggers. Shooting those eye daggers. That made it known. Stand back, lady.
The hard part for me, though. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Wait, I got more of it.
Go ahead. Keep going.
Her name was Rona. Rona, back off. Back off. Stand over there. I'm over here. Let me get my mango juice. Okay, let me pick my mango juice. 4 brands. Got to choose one. Then you can come over here, Rona. That's all I'm saying. I already had the Rona. I'm good. I'm immune from that shit. Hopefully. All right, we can continue with that.
I was going to say the hard thing for me, though, about Jacobs potentially being out is I don't know if we really know who's going to take over this backfield. If we get some sort of insight into who's going to lead it, then it becomes an obvious play. But for me, it's not as obvious as some people are making it sound like it.
Yeah, I don't think we'll know. We will not get that insight unless like Brandon Bolden's also out. But we won't get that insight. Everybody's going to want to play Zamir. I like it, but yeah, it's just a little bit of false. I've got a GPP thought for you guys.
Okay, let's hear it.
So and this is like it's very much like a scene playing out from The Princess Bride, where I'm trying to outsmart the other guy, and I know that I would do this, and and that, and then there's poison in both the cups anyway. Like there was no win, right?
Okay.
Remember that? You know what I'm talking? That's what's going on here. So at the beginning of the week, and this is where I'm going somewhere with this. At the beginning of the week, everybody's like, only a donkey would chase Tua and his big score. Let the suckers do that, right? Oh, Tua 48 fan. He's not doing that again. Oh, Bills defense, the #1 pass defense in the league. I'm not playing Tua again, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not doing that. But you know what? We're thinking, we're going to outsmart all the idiots who are going to do that, right? But when you look at the ownership projection, everybody has the same thought. That's the highest projected game on this slate.
Yep.
It's a close spread. And no one's playing Tua. Tua only throws to 2 guys. That's why he's called Tua. 2 guys, Waddle and Tyreek, both expensive, difficult to stack. But what if Tua does it again and no one believed that it could happen, and you get him at like no ownership in the highest projected total at home, and everybody after the slate goes, wait, no one played Tua at home with the highest total on the slate? What are we thinking? Josiah, what were we thinking? Should we play Tua?
Man. I wish I had the balls for that. I really do. I don't. I think seeing the ownership, I looked at it this morning. I was like, oh, man, that's very tempting.
6
but he
just nailed it.
The Bills have dominated every quarterback they faced so far. And if Tua was facing anyone besides the Bills, I'll be down to do this because why not? But that matchup, that's going to keep me back until if he does well in this game, I will write up Tua every week moving forward. I just don't think he's going to get it this week. I'm willing to go back to him next week, but not this week.
But everybody's saying that. I'm doing it.
I know.
I'm doing it.
I say do it, Geek. I think...
I'm doing it.
It makes a ton of sense strategically.
I was going the other way. And you know who has lower... So, wait, let me... Chalkboard. Hold up. BobbyWow.
Talk to me.
Look at Waddle. Wait, it went up a little bit. All right, because yesterday when I was looking at it, Waddle was still at like 5%, and it was Tyreek at 14%. Now I'm seeing they are coming together a little bit, so we'll see what happens. All right, so when I did study this, it was slightly different, but still, Waddle a little bit lower, and I think this is wrong. Honestly, I think it's going to be Waddle a lot, like half the ownership of Tua. So maybe even Tua just Waddle or making sure you get both of them. I know what you're saying though, Josiah.
And yeah, I'm
defense,
totally fine getting exposure to one receiver from that game because I think definitely one of them, like Waddle or Hill, could have a good game. I just don't foresee Tua scoring the way we would need him to win the slate. That's kind of like I feel like his ceiling isn't as high just in this matchup.
I'm gonna tell you right now.
I like your mindset, but for me, I'm higher on Goff for kind of like the exact same reasons. Like for me, that's kind of where I would rather go.
I like it. So you're talking Goff, but let me just finish this thought, and then I want to talk about Goff because he had a surprisingly good. No one is aware of it, but he actually scored really well. No one knows that. No one knows that Goff had it. No one even looked. You're the only person, Josiah, who paid attention. But my last thought about this Bills game, and then I want to move on, is remember Jonathan Taylor. No one wanted to play Jay Twist when the Colts went out to Buffalo. In Buffalo? Hell no. I'm not playing Jonathan Taylor. What are you, nuts? Bills defense is so good. All he did was go for 180 yards and 4 touchdowns. I back tested it. If you didn't have JT, so it was the same concept for me. Like all of a sudden a stud went to a place where we thought it was a bad matchup. No one played him. 5% ownership. Jonathan Taylor went off for 50, the biggest fantasy score, I believe, of the entire year. Who would ever think that? That's supposed to happen against the Jets, not against the Bills. It happened against the Bills. So anything can happen. It's hot in Miami. True. If you come from Buffalo, like you're not used to the heat of Miami. It's hot there.
True.
It's really hot there right now. It's super humid. You're sweating. 5 minutes sweating. In Buffalo, it's snowing right now. Today, it's snowing in Buffalo. That's how cold it is. It's not actually snowing in Buffalo. Buffalo's like half an hour north of where I live. What am I talking about? Like it's the same weather as where you live, BobbyWow. It's nice out today. All beautiful. Right. I want to address this Jared Goff situation, Josiah. Jared Goff, I like that. No one will play. He doesn't even show up on the chalkboard.
Yeah.
Like his player card is not loaded up to where it could ever show up because the assumption was he would never have enough ownership to be playable. But here he is. So he's priced up 5,800. Wow.
Yeah, not cheap. But he's not super expensive either. I mean, I think my thought process is Lions, they're in a dome. They've been playing well in domes. There's just not a reason not to. Definitely when they're the second highest total. They're in the game with the second highest total again. So, like, it just makes sense for me to play them. The Vikings defense does worry me a little bit, but not enough to not play it. Like, I don't want to play Goff. Like, I'll make that clear. Like, I'm not loving this play. It's just a logical play that I just kind of have to do just out of principle.
I mean, that's fine. It's a very highly projected game, and I think it's going to be a close game. Yeah, I just want to mention, 3. So very low. He doesn't make the chalkboard. And literally, I just want to mention that this made me actually laugh out loud when I saw it. And I still think it's funny when I see it. So I had to put that on screen. Can you hear it when you read it? Wav, twoo, wav. Like I can hear it.
Oh man.
Just seeing it written, I hear it in my ears. You can't not hear it if you've seen that movie. All right. My man, love it. First time on the live broadcast. That's awesome. What's up, Dustin?
Nice.
So all right. Let's continue on the quarterback tip here because I want to kind of throw it out to you. Josiah, you gave us your crazy, I'm playing Goff a little bit in Millie Makers. BobbyWow, give me some areas where you're looking to go. How are you getting a little bit different on this slate? We got to get away from Josh Allen, probably, Hurts and Lamar and Herbert and that crew. How are you getting different on the slate, BobbyWow?
Yeah, I think for me, my big area of getting different is going to be Matt Ryan. And, some of it's pending Pittman, but Matt Ryan, he has these games where you'll be like, oh my God, he's not 45 anymore. He's got some life left. And so I have some interest in Matt Ryan against the Chiefs. He's insanely cheap. And, I think Jonathan Taylor is going to be really popular too. So again, from a tournament leverage and salary standpoint, he makes a lot of sense to me. I know it's ugly, but that's kind of that's my crazy play at quarterback.
That Colts offensive line just seems to be deteriorating in front of our eyes, or maybe not. Maybe it's just a little bit of noise. Is Joe Flacco a sneaky play? I think yes. I think Joe Flacco is a perfectly acceptable, vomit stack quarterback. He had a big game last week.
Yeah.
I would actually throw this at you. If you have a choice to start Joe Flacco or the Giants quarterback, Cooper Rush, I'd probably lean Joe Flacco.
Yeah, I mean, Flacco has the experience. I mean, Cooper Rush on the Cowboys are just bad in general. But, I think for me, like, those, like, Joe Flacco is a reasonable play. I'm not going to get there, but I get it. I really like the Matt Ryan call. I was looking at my notes, and I had kind of like a thought process for this week. It's just like everyone has kind of set and like they have their opinions and thoughts on what the DFS landscape is right now, and they're just like loading down on it. The Bengals are bad. The Colts are bad. When the Colts in particular have had a lot of injuries that have kind of led to why they're bad. So it makes sense to jump on that before the rest of everyone else is. So I love that Matt Ryan call.
My biggest concern with Matt Ryan, and I mean, it's twofold, but I do think Pittman will be back. Pittman comes back. But Jonathan Taylor's still there to suck up a lot of the fantasy production. So I feel like the ceiling is going to always be a little bit limited, even if they're competitive. I don't know that they're going to be competitive in this game where we have to see like how it plays out. But if they are competitive, Matt Ryan's taking on KC, right? The Colts defensive coordinator is Gus Bradley, correct?
I'd have to confirm that.
Just confirm that for me.
It is. Let's say it is.
Because that's the guy who was the defensive coordinator for the Raiders when when Kansas City kept torching them for like 50 and 60 actual real life points per game. So that leads me to think, since we're not talking about Mahomes at all, and I know he's like Mr. Everybody wants to play Mahomes, but isn't this the same defensive coordinator that Mahomes literally smoked for like 6 touchdowns last year? And so let's keep an eye on Mahomes. And one other thing I would say with Mahomes is, and I talked a little bit about this on my prize picks on a breakdown video, was when Mahomes scores like 30, when he does his ceiling games, he almost always carries Kelsey with him to a monster game. Like there are very few circumstances where Mahomes has that tournament winner that it's not with Kelsey. Or at least Kelsey didn't do a lot as well. We've seen obviously last year the Tyreek Hill big games, but it's for whatever reason when Mahomes is going nuts, he usually pulls Kelsey along with him as well. So an interesting little side potential play with Mahomes to Kelsey.
Can I bring up one more game really fast for QB?
Sure.
I know we got to move on. Would love your thoughts on this one. Bucks, Packers. I feel like the game total is low. Okay, let's acknowledge that. Aaron Rodgers' ownership, I hate to say it, it is way too low. I think he's like he's 1%? Under 1%.
Yeah.
He's 0.3%.
There's nothing I like about this game.
Yeah, I can't do it.
Nothing.
It's at the Bucks. The Bucks have a great defense.
I didn't like
this, please.
It. I like Cole Beasley.
Oh my Lord,
making his comeback. Like I don't know. Cole Beasley's coming back for this game, from what I hear. There's too many weapons down. Sammy Watkins out.
Yeah.
Sammy Watkins a weapon.
The big weapons. Like I don't know who are the pass catchers for the Packers at this point. Like they have Lazard and Aaron Jones, and then
I would have no idea who to stack with Rodgers. Yeah, that'd be like my biggest issues. Like, I just have no idea where to go. Yeah, it's tough.
Leo is hurt. Mike Evans is out. Chris Godwin is out. Like, do not start Tom Brady in your season-long league. I've got Carson Wentz in for Tom Brady. No Tom Brady.
As we're saying this, BobbyWow was also on Brissett last week, and we were like, no, can't do that. So, I mean,
I was on Tua. You were on Brissett.
Tua.
Bobby mentioned, listen, let's go back to last week, and then I want to talk about no house advantage for a second here. But Bobby absolutely talked about Tua on this, and I was like,
Nice.
He's going up to Buffalo. That's why I'm not poo-pooing. He's going up to Baltimore. No one wanted to play him. And Josiah, my goodness, the Chubb call. The only player on the main slate at running back that did anything was Nick Chubb. Like every other running back was terrible. All of them. It was a weird slate. You needed Wilson Jr. and his 12 points because at least he was cheap. And that was the only, the combo was Chubb and Wilson Jr. because they were all shit. So great call last week, Josiah. Now, before we move on, and we're going to get to the wide receivers. We're going to get to the running back. Running back is crazy this week. I want to mention our sponsor for the show, No House Advantage. And again, I've been talking about No House Advantage on the past couple shows, not just because they sponsor the show, which is the big reason. We love you, sponsors, right? But also because I love overlay. What is overlay? Overlay is when a contest you're going to enter does not fill, right? So essentially, if I got to finish in the top 10% of this 1,800 person NFL kickoff contest, right? If I got to finish in the top 10%, that means I got to beat out 1,800, going to be the top 180. Top 20% leaves me in the top 360. Well, these contests are not filling. This is a newer site. It's not a newer site, actually, but they are stepping up their game in terms of the size of the contest. And they're generally not filling 1,800 person contest. We might only get 1,000 people in this. So now I've got to be top 360 to cash out of 1,000. It's almost like 50%. It's 36% instead of 20% for your score. You could really actually cash in this thing. And here's how it works. I'm just going to talk about it real quick. If you want to check them out, you can go sign up at No House Advantage. Promo code ARMY gets a deposit match as well. But the way this works, if you want to enter the tournament, is you click on this 30K Sunday playoff. You're going to pick a player for each point level. You're going to pick a prop. And if the prop hits, then you get those points. So the prop I picked out for today that I'm going to give as my free square is Amon-Ra over 6.5 receptions. BobbyWow likes Jared Goff this week. Wait, Josiah likes Jared Goff. Bobby doesn't want no part of that Jared Goff smoke. He's like, no. Don't put that play on me. That's Josiah.
I don't have the hate.
If Jared Goff is doing his thing, and that's why the second player you select when you do a lineup like this, if there's a Goff in here, you want to coordinate that. Come on, Goff. There's no Goff in there. No Goff in there. But if he was in there, I would be looking to stack that, right? But in general, Josiah likes Goff. If Goff is having a big game, he is throwing more than 6.5 times to Amon-Ra St. Brown. So check out No House Advantage. Go sign up with promo code ARMY. Enter this tournament. Take some free money. It's easy. Use the DFS Army research station and the player-specific projections as your guide for those props. All right. Moving on. Let's talk a little wide receiver. So just generally, a lot of the way I approach tournaments is if I'm paying up, like I want to hear your guys' thoughts, but when I'm paying up at wide receiver, I usually do try to pair that wide receiver up with his quarterback because I kind of feel like, you know, if Cooper Kupp's going off or if like a Stephon Diggs is going, like, do I really want to use Stephon Diggs in a lot of if the quarterback's chalk, like, do I want to use him in a lot of non-Allen lineups? Like, does that make sense? Should I use him or should I just, hey, I'll play Diggs. If I'm playing Allen as quarterback at all, I'm just going to play Diggs with Allen and then my non-Allen lineups, maybe I'll avoid him. How do you guys approach that sort of thing, or do you even think about it?
Bobby, why you want to go first, or I can?
Yeah, sure. At the end of the day, for me, I think I don't limit it personally to just stacking with the quarterback. I think especially on DraftKings, there's enough love to go around where the wide receiver performing well enough doesn't necessarily mean he has to drag the quarterback with him. So I guess it depends on how the slate's shaking out for the rest of your lineup. and what, your construction looks like, your salaries looks like. But for me, I don't like to limit it in that way.
Yeah. And I don't have a set rule either. I think my general philosophy is that I would much rather pair a receiver 2 or 3 with my quarterback, and then I'll rather have fringe one-offs be like receiver 1 options. But I don't really try to force it either way. But like if I'm doing like a 3 max or a single entry, that's typically my thought process.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I just I guess it depends. Also, sometimes there are certain wide receivers that it's too expensive to combo them with their quarterback, so you end up not doing that for other reasons. But yeah, a lot of times for me, like if I'm forcing Justin Jefferson in there, it's probably going to be in my Kirk Cousins stacks primarily. Like I might get a little one off on him, but it'll probably be mainly in my Kirk Cousins stacks. Interesting note here. A couple of interesting players that have kind of moved down the chalkboard and are going to be a little less owned. So last week was Devontae Adams chalk week, and he burned everybody. We love stud off a dud narratives. I love stud off a dud narrative.
Yeah.
I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but I love the stud off a dud narrative, and we got the stud off a dud. Now no one wants to play him. Everybody's going back to Cooper Kupp, which makes sense. Cooper Kupp in that insane game looks awesome. Can we go back to Devontae? I mean, I know we can, but do you like it as a tournament strategy to get off of I hate getting off of Kupp. Kupp is always good.
Yeah.
But maybe get off Kupp and get on Devontae here, or he's even an alternative to Stephon Diggs, I guess.
Yeah, it's hard to get off of like the general thought process when I think of the industry as a whole this week is pay up at receiver, high end running backs are bad. So pretty much everyone wants to pay up at receiver and then spend low at running back. But Devontae Adams is one of those expensive receivers that I like. Hunter Renfrow is officially out, which means, Adams gets all the targets he wants anyway, but that just helps his case even more, which also helps Waller as well when we get to tight end position.
I normally don't play Waller, but with no Renfrow in there,
like
that opens things up, and no Josh Jacobs. Not that matters. They don't really have a.
It still helps though.
Yeah, it can't hurt. Can't hurt. Bobby,
like,
wow.
I've been. Okay.
Yeah, no, go ahead. I mean,
I was gonna say, when I was looking in my notes right now, I have in big bold letters. Don't forget the Raiders players. I just don't want to forget about them because they're in a good spot. So I agree with you.
But it's really just the two guys, right? Like, I don't think we can play. Like at this moment, I don't think I can trust Zamir White. So maybe I'll come around to it more than 20 minutes after the news comes out.
Yeah.
If there's a couple of other injury situations, it's at the running back position, but James Conner might be out. They're calling him a game time decision. I don't love that matchup. I'm not sure that even if he is out, that I'm like wanting to play Williams. Maybe it just doesn't matter. But I know I want to get cheap at running back. Like, I do want to get cheap at running back. I'm just not sure how to pull it off.
I think there's a couple options when we get to it. For me, it's the spot isn't good for the Cardinals. It's not just Williams. It'll be, Benjamin as well. He'll get a bunch of snaps. And so, there's better spots, I think.
Yeah. And I hate going back a little bit, but I don't hate the Murray play from a quarterback position either against the Rams. But focusing from like a receiver standpoint, like there's still options where you don't have to force Connor or whoever ends up being the backup there, because that Rams defense is tough against the run.
Yeah, it doesn't lead. And speaking of those running backs, for the Rams side, Cam Akers starts to emerge last week. Like, was he in the doghouse week 1? What was going on there?
I tried to tell you this.
You did. I remember this on the Showdown pod.
Was he in the doghouse, BobbyWow? Like he pissed off.
You can't trust the coach. I remember.
He and I were both in the doghouse, but both have emerged. At last we see the light, Geek.
Yeah, I don't know. It was something's to it, but like, now it's Cam Akers getting more touches. There's a couple situations that swung like that. The big, I kind of want to talk about running backs because I can't figure out my wide receivers until I get my running backs down. And so the other guy, and he's not even on the chalkboard and probably doesn't belong here, but that's interesting, is Dameon Pierce, and I know he's going up against your beloved Bears, but Dameon Pierce got all the touches last week for Houston. Now, he got all the touches. He's super, super cheap. And this is a grinded out game where no team is probably, I like both running backs. We could talk about the chalk of the week, who David Montgomery will be the highest owned running back, right? See, it's funny. Dustin in the chat is thinking he might be a sneaky play, but he's sneaky good. But yeah, I mean, David Montgomery, I think is the rightful chalk. Everybody, Josiah, what you just said is perfectly correct. The field is like expensive running backs, bad. Why?
Yep.
Every single running back except for Chubb last week burned you. So everyone's like, well, that didn't work, right? Let me pay down at running back, punt it, and I'll get these stud wide receivers. That's what the field's going to do.
Yeah. And that's pretty much, if I'm thinking about it the right way, the opposite of what we typically do. We typically play the chalky, expensive running backs in good spots, and then we fade the super expensive wide receivers. And right now, everyone's flipped on it. But granted, it's hard to go against Cooper Kupp because he's freaking Cooper Kupp.
But you realize what we should do, right?
Yeah. What we should do is pay up at running back and pay down at wide receiver. It's just for people who have faded Cooper Kupp, you know what that feels like every time when he does eventually go off.
I don't know what it feels like. I never fade Cooper Kupp.
I know what that feels like.
I haven't experienced that. He's on like all my dynasty teams from last year. I just get so much goodness from Cooper Kupp every week when he's going off. I just feel the joy from it. I never felt the pain.
Must be
but
nice.
I hear it. The other people feeling the pain. No, I you know what? I think what we should do in tournaments is very close to the opposite of what the field is going to do. Right or wrong, over time, that's the correct approach. And that means it's going to be tough. I'm not a spend up at, I'm always a spend down at running back guy, but you probably got to spend up at running back this week to get different because no one's doing that. They're doing the other thing. So, but again, on the spend down side, Dameon Pierce, can we play him? Does he have enough upside?
Yeah. I mean, I think for his price, you can definitely play him. I mean, I haven't dug into it enough to really know if I'm excited about playing him. My gut instinct is like, no. But I do understand why people are playing him. And just at his price point, it just makes sense for how most people are building.
$5K on DraftKings. He needs 15 to not ruin your lineup. If he can cross 20, he's helping you take down a tournament. But that's where he needs to get to. He needs to score a touchdown there. There wasn't much passing. I still think they're going to throw it to Rex Burkhead. It's not Dameon.
They absolutely will.
Yeah. So now we'll compare him to the other running back in that game, David Montgomery. David Montgomery will be the chalk on this slate, 19% owned. And I have to say, I think it's, all right, I have an argument against, but I do think it's good chalk. I have an argument against it. There's a statistical anomaly, but we're going to try to explain it away. But generally, he had the big game last week, couple targets. I think the biggest thing that I saw out of Chubb and BobbyWow, I know you watch those Bears games with your heart and soul on your sleeve. That dude was running hard. Like he looked good running the football. He was rumbling, bumbling, stumbling, and breaking tackle. He was doing things that I saw him doing in his good runs over the last couple of years. Are we going to see, David Montgomery put all the haters to shame?
Yeah, I think the way he ran is like the perfect metaphor for how I feel as a fan when I'm cheering the Bears on. And that's going to carry over, I think. He was in full beast mode. Everyone saw it in prime time. The Packers knew he was getting the football, and he still did whatever he wanted. So I hate chalk. I really do. And I'm trying to find reasons not to play Montgomery, but he's the guy that's going to get the volume now. And I didn't even think we saw even close to his ceiling in the passing game last week either. So it's hard for me to say anything other than him being good chalk.
This guy can catch passes. He did not score a touchdown. He got 18 fantasy points last week. If he scores the touchdown, he easily surpasses the 4X level that we're looking for. Yeah, I mean 6-24. Like he gets you there with the touchdown. And this is going to be a close game. This is a much better matchup for the Bears. Like the Bears were going to get an ass whooping by the Packers because sorry, Bobby, but they always do. They always. This is like watching the Jets go to New England. Like we haven't won in New England since Vinny Testaverde was the quarterback. It doesn't matter. I remember that game with Vinny. I remember it. Was it just finishing up college? We won in New England. It was the greatest day. That's like the Bears at the Packers. They don't win when they go to the Packers. Never. How many years has it been? You know exactly how many years. How many?
I think 2015.
Oh, all right. So it's only been 7 years. It's not that bad.
Geek, my main question for you would be, I know last week you were talking about how the Texans are better on defense. You feel like they've gotten a lot better and they're just performing more strongly.
Offense more than the defense, I would say. But the Texans, they're playing good defense, but they're missing tackles. They have the most missed tackles in the league, 27 in 2 games. And missed tackles, you miss it. That helps the running like that. Who's that helping? That's helping David Montgomery. You missed that one tackle, David Montgomery's gone. So like missed tackles is what leads to, and they're, by the way, they're 29th ranked DVOA. Like their defense against the ranking is terrible against the run. And I'm not just saying like fantasy points allowed. I'm talking about like more real measures like DVOA, where they're just not good.
Yeah, I really want to fade David Montgomery here. Like everything in me wants to fade him, but I don't think I'm going to. I think I'm probably going to match the field on him and then gain leverage with the more expensive running backs. That's probably the way I'm going to play it as of right now.
The only argument, if you needed, and I talked about this before the show, if you need a real strong argument to fade Montgomery, he just hasn't had a good game, like a 20-plus point game with Fields yet. And, the sample size is not huge, but it's got to be 11 games or something like that. It's enough games where it's like, hey, he had these great games like Andy Dalton or whoever the backup quarterback was for the Bears when Fields went out. He had good games. It's just when Fields has been in the game, it hasn't been pretty. So I don't know. I'm just going to do with that what we will. But and Bobby, you said it best when we talked about it. You're like, it's because like every Fields game has just been weird and low scoring, and
he's a vulture too, right? Fields ran one in last week, so that's the other risk is Fields keeps it and runs it in. So totally agree with your point.
Yeah, a couple other cheap running backs or low cost running backs that I think will go under the radar this week. And I know we're going to get to the expensive ones, but there are a few low-cost ones that I think will go over the radar. I think this whole zone here is reasonable. So I would mention James Robinson, who no one wants to play. No one ever wants to play James Robinson.
That's true.
Everybody, he's not splitting touches. He's just he's the workhorse now.
Mm-hmm.
He took the bull by the horns. I mean, Travis Etienne is there. I don't really want to play James Robinson either. In fairness, I'm with all the other people, but I can't deny 23 touches. Last week was a very, very, very positive game script, though. I don't know if we can count on that. A big one for me is Leonard Fournette, Uncle Lenny.
Yep.
He's at home. And I'm going to give a word of caution on Gibson, but Uncle Lenny at home, they don't have anyone else to throw to. Is Tom Brady going to target Fournette a little bit more frequently than usual in this game, maybe?
I think so. And again, when I brought up Packers Bucks, I wasn't just talking about QBs. I think Fournette is a great play. I think Aaron Jones is an interesting play again at a high price, low ownership.
More interesting, great, yeah.
But I mean, Lenny came out on Twitter and promised his fantasy guys he was going to be back this week. So I don't know if we need any more than that, honestly.
I love it when they do that. I do. I really think it makes a difference. Quentin West has I love this for a GPP thought. And BobbyWow, it should have been you who said it as a Bears fan. But Quentin West got to it, and he might take your place in the tri-headed GOAT roundtable. Darnell Mooney, no one's going to play Darnell, right? He stinks so far this year. But, in tournaments, that's the perfect play. I mean, it's the perfect play in tournaments. Like, I'm not touching that. I'm afraid to put him in my season-long lineup. I'm afraid to go anywhere near him. But in large field GPP, what if it's that, what if they decide to throw the football?
Yeah, I've seen Mooney's name this week just enough where I could totally see that making sense. But what do you think, Bobby?
Guys, I could talk about the Bears and make bold claims about the Bears this whole podcast. So let's just assume I'm playing Justin Fields and I'm playing Darnell Mooney in some lineups this weekend.
That's my gosh. I will not play any Justin Fields.
I get it. Like, it's totally going to happen now.
What do we think about sneaky? Mariota to London made my sheet this week as an interesting stack. OG and my thought with it, and I will address it because it's on my sheet. My thought with that one was, Mariota can do it with his legs. Like, we haven't seen a lot of that yet so far this year, but he can do it with the legs. Drake London, legit stud wide receiver, 30+% target share, 5,900 on DraftKings. Like, he is not priced as a stud, but he is very studly in what he's doing. So, Mariota to London. I actually think the interesting, crazier tournament pivot, want to fucking tournament tactics it, right, for this show, is where you put Pitts in there. Everybody hates Pitts.
I was just going to say that. I've been playing tight ends against Seattle for years and making money with that strategy. I don't even fully understand it. It's just something that's worked. So Kyle Pitts this week, I like the over on him. So that's where I'm going. But the stack, I'm not playing Mariota. Y'all can have fun with that one.
You could play some Mariota too, but
you can play it.
Fine.
I like it.
He's against a bad team. He's not taking on a good defense. It's Seattle.
The worst defense, maybe.
Very bad. Very bad. The worst?
That's the Panthers.
We'll see.
Panthers are the worst team.
We'll find out this week about the Panthers. But everybody thinks their home team. Like, I'm like, no, the Jets. You're like the Panthers. Our home teams all suck. But yeah, I mean, Pitts. No one's playing Pitts. I'm telling you, it's hard to pull the trigger. But he's finally down. I've said for basically the better part of a year and a half, I was like, why is this guy priced so high? Show me a good game. Why would I pay the same price as Andrews or like, he's been priced up and he has yet to show a good game. Now he's down in the Zach Ertz.
He's so cheap.
Dallas Goedert area.
Ertz at least is also an interesting play, but
Ertz is always interesting. Ertz, I play him every week. He was my top play last week. He did just fine, as he always tends to do. They throw to him 9 times a game. I don't understand why he's 4,500, but like, I've got another cheat code at wide receiver that I want to mention.
Okay.
I know we moved on to running back, but I forgot to mention this guy. As I get rid of the hold on.
The great spam. Gotta love
Geek, while you're getting rid of that, 2 quick running backs I want to throw out for tournaments. One, more expensive side, is Austin Eckler. I know it's a tough matchup, but that guy is going to break out at some point. Might be this week, might be next week, but he's going to break out at sub 5% ownership. So I'll be overweight on Eckler this week.
Let's address this. Let's address this whole zone here. Austin Eckler's fine. In a bubble, is Austin Eckler a better play, a worse play, or the same play as Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry, Christian McCaffrey? About the same price.
I mean, it depends on how you think the Herbert situation develops. Like, if you think him playing helps Eckler, if you think it hurts him, like, it really just kind of depends on your thought process around it.
My feeling on this whole scene right here is they're all kind of the same, which is why I don't know. Like, it's a guess. These are, and by the way, what are we doing? What is daily fantasy? What is trying to win a tournament? We're guessing things, right? We're trying to put ourselves, these are guesses. I don't know which of Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, Austin Eckler, Dalvin Cook, or Joe Mixon is going to pop off for 30. I wish I did, which was going to pop off for 35, 40 fantasy points. I wish I knew. I don't have a clue. All I know is what their ownership might be in the tournament and what their ceiling potential is. And I might be able to place a percentage odds on what are their chances of hitting that ceiling. So, yes, I agree with you on Austin Eckler, Bobby Wow. I don't love Austin Eckler.
Sure.
I don't love him. I don't love the volume that he gets.
Does how you see Eckler change if Herbert's in or out, Bobby?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, again, I just think he's ready to break out, and the Jaguars matchup is interesting. And so I'm not paying as much attention to the Herbert thing. Why? Does that change something for you?
No, I mean, I'm just curious on like if he'll get more receptions or less receptions, because I know that's usually a big way on how he scores fantasy points. I have a narrative that's kind of secretly in the back of my mind that I know is just ridiculous, that's not even going to affect anything. Just like he spilled some information around like the Herbert injury on his Twitch channel or whatever. Curious to see what they do there. But I mean, I think like we've been talking about, like I'm going over this week pretty much on all of the expensive running backs. So I'm trying to figure out one that I'm super passionate about. I mean, I know Joe Mixon is in a smash spot this week. Like that makes a ton of sense, but he's also the most popular out of the people who are all up here. So it just limits it. I don't have a strong take, but I really want to play Derrick Henry this week for the biggest reason just being that everyone hates playing Derrick Henry now and no one's going to play him. But also the Raiders aren't that strong defensively. Like they have some stats where they spike, but for the most part, they don't scare me with Derrick Henry. So I'm willing to go there. So that's the take if I have to have some
of that splits research that I was doing this week. Derrick Henry in games where his team wins averages over 20 fantasy points per game. When his team loses, it's down in the low teens. So Derrick Henry is one of the most is my team winning sensitive players in the NFL. A lot of these running backs work that way, but Derrick Henry especially. So basically, what are the chances that the Titans stay close and win this game?
They might never win another game again. They stink.
They don't look very good. I'm not going to lie. They don't look that great. They don't
look
look great.
The honesty.
They have not looked very good, but that is an overreaction. Every team in the NFL is pretty good. Every team in the NFL can play bad. Especially when teams go on the road, they're off. I just watched the Jaguars absolutely dominate the Colts last week, and you're like, hey, that was weird. And I watched the Eagles, who are a good defense, absolutely dominate another what I thought was a good team in the Vikings. Anything can happen.
And you can make a similar case for like CMC. Everyone's scared of him now because he tweaked his ankle a little bit. He's going to play this weekend. He's going to get a ton of targets. Like against the Saints, they don't scare me that much, so it makes a ton of sense. And then Jonathan Taylor, we've seen him smash great defenses like Geek mentioned earlier. There's absolutely no reason to not play him. So, I mean, I think my philosophy is in particular on like Eckler, Henry, McCaffrey, and Taylor is just to go over and then pay down at receiver. So
get a mix. Yeah, get a mix. The one other guy I want to call out, and someone else mentioned it, is Miles Sanders.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wanted to get back to don't make Miles Sanders your core play though.
I'm not saying core. I'm not saying core. No.
Yeah, let's not go crazy with Miles Sanders, but how cheap is he? Where's he priced?
He's cheap. He's like 5,500, I think.
This feels so gross. I am not a Miles Sanders guy ever.
He's been on a heater though.
He's been looking good, and again, this is not just the looking good. It's not just the good spot, which both of those things, but it's also a pivot off of the Hurts chalk. So again, just trying to think through some tournament options. I kind of like him.
Yeah. Do you like him more or less than in Antonio Gibson, who's like $1,000 or $900 more expensive?
I like him more than Gibson.
Antonio Gibson has that same issue that all the Commanders players have, which is, again, bringing it back around to this thing I was talking about before with the splits. Carson Wentz does really well, and his teams do well when they win. I know this sounds nuts, and it almost seems like, but when Wentz is part of a losing effort, he's not like the guy that makes a comeback. Like he just falls apart. I've had Wentz as my quarterback many times in DFS, and you're like, all right, garbage time. You don't get it. It doesn't happen in the second half. He gets worse as the bad game goes on. So I think.
Wait, hasn't he come back though? Like the last 2 weeks? Like the last 2 weeks have been like him coming back after sucking?
No, I think they were ahead though the whole game. Like the team was never like out of it, were they?
Last week I think they were pretty far behind.
Yeah, and the week before that he was doing pretty awful too, and then he came back.
Maybe he's changing it on this new team because his when you look at the splits, it's just in losing games he sucks. Like when the team loses, Wentz is like just terrible. And, so like his average fantasy production in a loss is massively worse, which is not the case for every quarterback. That was an unusual statistic. Like when you look that up, it doesn't show that way for every quarterback. It's unique to him. Like, oh, in a loss, and he won those games. So they're counting as wins in that statistical category for whatever it's worth. But when he's lost games, it's been ugly, and the whole team gets ugly. So I have a little bit of concern, but I want to stick with that team for a second and talk about a player who I think is this year's cheat code, or might be the replacement for Deontay Johnson. Now, you guys know that I was on Deontay Johnson long before the field figured out that he gets 12 targets.
He was your cheat code for a while.
I had a whole year of him, just me. And then last season, other people picked up on it. Now I
forgot his name because Geek would always just refer to him as cheat code. I mean, it was that bad.
Yeah. And it was great. He was always in the 5K and he would always get 10 targets. And I'm like, 10 targets, 5,500. What's the worst that could happen? Like, he got 15 fantasy points, which was what he would get. He would get 15, and every once in a while, he didn't get the 30s, so his salary didn't explode. But so we have a guy like that this year that's doing that, and is priced even cheaper than cheat code was. And that's Curtis Samuel on the Commanders. I just want to show you this. Like, they are running schemed plays. He can get hurt. I know. But if we need to pay down, there's not that much going on sub 5K at the wide receiver position. I mean, 11 targets week 1, 9 targets week 2. He's averaging 10 targets per game. But what I love about it, these are low ADOT targets. These are schemed screenplays. Plays that are not, he's not the second or third look. He is the first designed look, and he's catching most of them. He's got a 90% or an 80% receptions rate. So he's catching 80% of the passes his way. Give me 8 receptions. You have to score 18 fantasy points just by default of a catch, 8-9 yards on average. And if he scores a touchdown, oh my goodness. So to me, Curtis Samuel's that high floor cheat code. He's at home. Again, tougher defense this week. Eagles are good, but is their best guy going to be on the gadget man, or is he going to be on Terry McLaurin?
Yeah, or Dotson.
Or Dotson, who's catching touchdowns. Like Curtis Samuel, just you can't cover him, because if you're covering him, then what are you going to do?
They move him around. Yeah,
he's all over the place. He's not playing a traditional role. Are you guys like? What do you think of this cheat code for the whole season until they raise his price to 6K? I should be quiet about it. Maybe I shouldn't be talking about it.
Yeah, maybe not. No, Geek, you called him last game too. You called him out last game, and he was fantastic. So there's no argument against him for me. I wouldn't call him a high floor guy. That might be the one pushback I'd have. Just, again, 2-week sample size, yes. But overall,
throughout his career,
his ceiling is high at that price. Big time.
I think it's the floor. I love the volume. I love the design plays. I'm more concerned with Jahan Dotson catching touchdowns. Like, that might not happen again. He's getting 4. Jahan Dotson, who's put up 20s every week, he's getting 4 targets. Just caught a touchdown or a big play. He's catching a bomb. This guy is doing it without the touchdown. He's just doing it on volume. I like it when they do it on the volume. So yeah, I didn't want to let it go on the wide receiver side without mentioning the cheat code that I think we have in place.
Yeah. I mean, I really don't want to play him, but he makes a ton of sense, so I get it.
Yeah, why not though? What 5K? I mean, if
I've been playing Curtis Samuel for like 2 to 3 years because he used to be on the Panthers. So I have baggage. I have baggage.
Yeah, you've got Panthers.
I need to get past this. I need some therapy when it comes to
I've never played Curtis Samuel before this season, ever.
Yeah, so that's why you should keep playing him.
Yeah, I didn't have that. He was always hurt in the past, so it's like Hurt Leo. I never play him. Even if he's not hurt, he gets hurt during the game. I've never seen someone with such a propensity to always be hurt. All right, running back position. So anything else we missed here? Any players that – so I'll start with you, Bobby Wow. Any players that like going a little under the radar? I know you mentioned Miles Sanders. To me, that's under the radar. Any other under the radar plays? Are you just or strategies for this week at the running back position?
I think overall I'm with you guys. I like Sanders, a little bit of an under the radar play, and then I'm gonna have a mix of the running backs up top, but I'm not gonna exclude Eckler, and I'm not gonna exclude Jones either. So Aaron Jones for the Packers would be another under the radar play for me.
Yeah, I just think these whole crew up here. I mean, I like a lot of them. It's for me difficult to distinguish, for example, between Joe Mixon, Chubb coming off a 3-touchdown game against the Jets. Like Jets defense probably not very good. Dalvin Cook hasn't had a big game this year yet, but if he's ever going to have one, it's at home against Detroit. Like it's now or never, buddy. Let's get it going. Jonathan Taylor against a 28th ranked KC rush defense. No one wants to play Taylor. Last year he put up 50 points in a situation like this. And Derrick Henry, they're all viable. I don't know how you distinguish. And what I'm doing, so one of the ways that I build lineups, and I want to talk about tight end for a second right after this, but the way I build lineups is if I find a core, I just keep clicking those buttons. And then I build around. So I'm like, all right, let's build one around Allen to this guy. And let's build one around Cousins to that. But a lot of times in the past, like in when I can, I'm just like, nope, these are my 4 running backs. And I'm just like, rolling them through those 2 spots. I usually only play 2 running backs. I don't have anybody I'm leaning on. I think it's going to be Montgomery. Like I'm just going to eat that chalk, I think. But do you feel like comfortable leaning on anybody this week at all and having them core at the running back position? Like Josiah, do you have a core running back for me? Tell me one that's going to work out.
It's like last week I had 2 guys I was on. One worked out, one didn't. And this week, I don't have like a core 2 guys that I'm going super heavily on. I might by the time we get to Sunday. Definitely check out my tournament cheat sheet. That's where I kind of put all my secrets for what I'm doing on the slate. But as of right now, I'm pretty much just have like my overall strategy and not going too heavily on any 1 or 2 guys right now at the running back position.
That's fair. And that's just the way the slate's
but I did want to mention someone though. Sorry, totally interrupted you. The Jets running backs against the Bengals, Michael Carter. They're in a 50-50 split right now, which is super annoying. But I do think Michael Carter in particular could have a big game.
That could happen. I bet the overs on I bet the overs, or the price pick the overs on both Carter and Breece Lightning. Just coining that. Making sure I get it out there. BobbyWow, any running backs that you feel like you can go core on this week?
I don't think so. I'm with you guys. I think Montgomery, I'm going to eat that chalk, and then I'm going to have a nice share of those guys up top for sure with some Miles Sanders sprinkled in. That's how I'm going to roll it.
I like it. All right, let's talk a little tight end here. And let me bring back the chalkboard. We'll take a look at who the chalk is at tight end this week and see if we can't figure out why and how to get a little different. So it looks like Tyler Higbee is the top guy. People are aware that Arizona has a bad defense supposedly against tight ends. And so everybody wants to load up on Tyler Higbee, who, yes, he's actually had a couple of heavy volume games. Is that the new normal for Tyler Higbee? Is he going to get 9 targets a game? If that's the case, then I think the chalk is right.
I mean, I think they haven't been able to trust some of their newer receivers yet. Personally, if there's ever a tight end that I love fading, it's Higbee. I just love fading Higbee. He just has these random weeks where he gets popular and he usually doesn't show up for him. I mean, I don't have a ton of like a good reason to not do that, but that's typically my philosophy when it comes to chalk Higbee weeks.
This could not feel more like last week's chalk Derek Carr. We did like a whole show about why chalk Derek Carr is the worst possible play in tournaments. And I actually think it affected ownership because ownership's changed and people started playing Carson Wentz last week. And then DFS got mad at me, ownership projection. He was like, you changed ownerships because of your words. I don't know what's worse, Derek Carr chalk or Tyler Higbee tournament chalk. When has Tyler Higbee ever put up a score that was like, shit, I needed to have Tyler Higbee or I'm not winning the Millie Maker this week? Like that has never happened.
Outside of a showdown.
In the showdown, maybe because the 12 is enough to win the showdown. But like, when has this guy ever been like, I'm done. I didn't play Tyler Higbee. BobbyWow, have you ever been in a tournament and you're like, oh crap, I didn't play Tyler Higbee. Shut the TV off. At least Game of Thrones is on tonight.
The first time would be next time. So,
Yeah.
I'm with you, Geek. That's
Never
fadeable chalk.
Never happened. Never happened. That's very fadeable chalk. So let me go back to the chalkboard because, hey, we're discovering players that we don't need to play all the way at top. Another guy that hasn't had a big game yet is TJ Hawkinson. I mean, this is weird chalk. So here's what I think. I'm just going to go overall strategy for a second. This week, obviously, I don't think it's a pay up. It's not easy to pay up a tight end. The way the salaries worked out, I have not yet found, and that doesn't mean we won't. There's no Greg Dortch at 3,500 or 3,200 hanging out. There's no Ashton Dolan at 3,200 hanging out this week like we had. Was it last week? I can't even remember anymore. We don't have that. So now that's not to say between today, it's Friday. For those of you watching on replay, it's Friday. And, by Sunday, yeah, maybe something will emerge like that. But at this moment, there's no $3,500 player that I can plug into my lineup. I haven't found one. The closest is, and somebody mentioned it in the chat, Bashard Perriman. And that feels horrible. And
so bad.
He's probably going to have Yair Alexander on him because Hurtleo isn't even going to play because he's hurt. So
is he out yet officially?
He's not official, but that dude's not playing. Come on. He never played.
And if he does, he'll play a snap and kill your lineup if you play him.
Hurtleo is only there so idiots in my dynasty leagues can keep offering him to me for a second. Oh, he's a starting quarterback. Julio Jones.
I'm a sucker for Julio, man. I'll play him for all of us.
You'd give me a second rounder in dynasty for Julio right now. You'd be that guy. And I'm like, what are you doing? He never plays. I don't even remember what I was talking about.
Tight ends.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no.
How did we get on Julio? We're talking about tight ends. What even happened?
I don't remember. I was talking about. That's what I'm saying. I went off on a tangent and I forgot where I was going with it. So there's no cheap players. There's no cheap players to allow us to pay up at tight end. So we got to use these cheap guys.
That was it. I think for me, I mean, it's not like a super insightful comment here, but I might pay up for Kelsey, especially if I'm playing Mahomes. I'm paying up for Travis Kelsey. Outside of that, the 3,800 to 4,800 range, you don't need to look anywhere else, really. I mean, I might include Evan Ingram in there, but there are plenty of juicy, awesome plays in that price range. And I mean, that's cheap, man, for some of these guys.
I'm thinking,
what are your thoughts on Irv Smith?
Irv Smith is going to be the guy that everybody wants to play. I think Irv Smith is great because here's what happened with Irv Smith. He had a breakout game after salaries were set. I love that. So, we all got to see it in prime time. But weirdly, the ownership hasn't spiked. He's 3,100, which is the price I like. So, Bobby, you said it best. I can hang out in the 4,500 zone all day. And you know what? Sure. There's Pitts. There's Higbee. There's Goddard. There's a whole bunch of Zach Ertz. All those guys are hanging out over there.
Yep.
Yeah, I think for me, there was some buzz being generated for Johnny Munt, and so that kind of scares me off Irv Smith a little bit.
Johnny Munt almost got the touchdown on the showdown, and that he would have been put on the turd spinner as the turd of the week. All he needed was like 6 more inches, and I know you were quickening your boots when I was like, Munt. You should have seen me screaming for Munt.
For the record, that was a joke. That was a callback. So there's no worries about Johnny Munt here.
You didn't see the showdown breakdown. You don't know what he's talking about. But Irv Smith, okay. First of all, I understand why people like him now. I haven't seen Irv Smith have a good game ever before, with my eyes I don't know. I had never watched one of the games where, has he ever had a good game? I just had never seen one of those games with my eyes. He legitimately does look like a wide receiver out there. Like you see him running around, you're like, wow, that's a tight end. He's skinny and he doesn't look like a tight end at all.
I feel like we talk about him every year in the playoffs. I don't know why. His name just
probably for showdown purposes. Yeah, it's just in the showdown. I don't think Irv Smith is bad at 3,100. It's fine. It's a good play.
Yeah, it's a good punt play.
The other guy who's like tight end 4 on the and didn't even make the chalkboard. He's not even on the chalkboard. This is like the TE4. Mm-hmm. Like if you sort by fantasy points per game, he's one of the highest at the tight end position this year. Of course, on the back of 2 decent games, I guess. Whatever. 10 targets. This guy is TE4.
10
But
targets is a
Gerald
lot.
Everett, at 4,400 feels a little spendy for him, though.
Yeah.
You can pay $400 more for Kyle Pitts. I mean, come on.
Yeah. I mean, Kyle Pitts is my tight end this week that I think is going to go a little overlooked. So that's kind of my stand for the week. But
Yeah,
I
I'm
110% agree with Bobby Wow. Patrick Mahomes with Kelsey. Mahomes is going to be one of my top 3 quarterbacks this week, and he's going to be paired with Kelsey in pretty much all of those. There's some lineups I'm going to get a little cute with the receiver options here and there, but that's definitely the way I'm going in most of my lineups there.
I think if we're talking tournament tactics and getting different, which is what we're all about here, then I think you nailed it in the sense that you're getting Kelsey at low ownership, right? So what's the field going to do? The field is this week, the field will pay down at tight end because there's no cheapies that allow us to pay. I always look to pay up. I had Mark Andrews core last week. Core. He was in 50% of my lineups. I do like to pay up a tight end when I can. So you're going to get Kelsey at 4% ownership. Robert Mitchum got a dad joke in there that made Bobby Wow.
That was awesome, man.
Yeah,
that was so good.
He actually made him laugh. I like that. So paying up a tight end is going to be the different way of doing it. That's how you get different. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it because the lineup looks really bad when you do that. Like you'll see, it's great to say I want to stack Mahomes with Kelsey, and then when you look and you're like, oh, I have to play Quez Watkins this week because there's no other player at this price, or I have to double tight end it. You could do it. Or you got to play Irv Smith at the TE2. I like Irv Smith, by the way. I think it's fine. I only want the 5 catches that he got last week at 3,100. That's all I'm asking for. No, Dustin's taking it too far with the Dolph, bro. It's too much. You took it too far. I cannot sign off on Kyle Rudolph. As a matter of fact, at any $2,600 guy, though, is fine. You play a $2,600 tight end. All you really need is 3 receptions.
The problem for me, though, is you pay for a $2,600 tight end on a slate where Kelsey, Andrews, Waller are priced up. I mean, there's like 5 or 6 guys in the 7K range. I just don't think you need to go there with these, I would call somewhat studs in the $4,500 range. It makes less sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, get Zach Ertz on your team or Logan Thomas for 3,500 in a good matchup is fine. Somebody mentioned Tyler Conklin. He's been getting 6 or 7 targets a game for 3,800. Dallas Goedert. I like that. I like that Eagles offense in general. And if I don't want to play AJ Brown with Jalen Hurts, Dallas Goedert, I might only play them with Hurts, but so yeah, there's a lot of goodness. Like I said, I play Zach Ertz pretty much every week, and it hasn't burned me yet. And even Darren Waller, yes. I don't know if I could get to him.
Just don't get too cute, I think, is what I'm saying. Don't get cute with tight end.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of goodness at the tight end. You could save money at it. Even a double tight end if you need to play the stud. Like, is Kelsey worse than any other $7,900 player on the slate? Like, his upside is just as good as... There's a whole slew of really elite wide receivers that we just didn't get a chance to talk about. This whole zone, I mean, Waddle, St. Brown, and Hill, they're all so good.
Wide receivers where it's going to be really tough. I mean, it's going to be a tough week in general just because there's so many games that are supposed to be absolute trash. But the wide receiver position's one where we talked about it a little bit already, where it's going to be kind of, you really have to find that guy who's going off this week. Just because there's so many options of guys who've been going off, you really have to try to find.
There's a lot of, I think there's a lot of goodness. I think a lot of the, I think a lot of the wide receivers will smash. At least it looks like that on paper. A lot of them will smash. And you could play Amon-Ra, and that's fine. But you could play Tyreek, and that's awesome too. And they both could have a great game. And Amon-Ra hasn't had a bad game. The Sun God, elbow to fist, he hasn't had a bad game. Going back until middle of last year. This guy has 30, 25, 30, 25. It goes back to last season. At this point, we can't poo-poo it anymore. He keeps doing it every single week. 30% of the targets, these guys will get 30% of the target share. They score well. They do good on fantasy. That's good fantasy production. Your team throws, and you get 30% of the targets. Guy throws 40 times, you get 12 targets, 13 targets. Great. That always works out well. You're always going to do well when you get 13 target. Even when it's bad, it's pretty good. So
yeah, I'm gonna throw this up here real quick too. Dustin, ask away. This is the place to ask questions. You're in the right spot. DFS Army is awesome with this. So you can never ask enough questions. We love them. Keep them coming. It's how you get better.
Yeah, and to answer his question above, like when will Pitts break out? Drake London has been awesome. I watched a little bit of the last game. It looked like teams were really focusing on Kyle Pitts a lot, and that left Drake London open. So I'm hoping eventually that will balance itself out, so Pitts will start to get a little bit more open. But like we said, there's a ton of really good tight end spots. Like Pitts and Waller are like my two guys I'm really focusing on, but there's a lot of really good ways you can go this week. I think the most important thing is you focus on like the overall strategy of what we're talking about, and you don't have to over focus or hyper focus on like the plays themselves.
Yeah.
Just like focus on the strategy and make sure that you're thinking about it the right way.
Yeah, for me, my approach is a lot of it is understanding that you're not able to predict a lot of these things, and no matter how confident we think we are at predicting fantasy outcomes, the reality is like, yeah, I can get an idea if when one player should get some good volume and should be a big part of their team's offense, but there's no way of knowing if this is the week that Jonathan Taylor does the 50 burger, or Dalvin Cook finally gets his shit together, or Kyle Pitts, who's been terrible for 2 weeks in a row, just like David Njoku was absolutely horrific the first 2 weeks and busts out with a 30-plus point fantasy production seemingly out of nowhere. You have to keep going back to guys who you know are good. We know Kyle Pitts is a pretty good player. And now the salary, it's more about like the salary and the ownership. You give me that guy at low ownership and low salary, you want to take the shot. Even if you're wrong, it doesn't matter. You were right. Like the right call was taking the shot. Did he do it this week? No. All right. Now we go back to it next week. We do it again until it happens at lower ownership and a lower salary. That's what you just got to do. Acknowledge, understand that we don't know. We don't know. If we knew, we'd be billionaires, right? Like you can only beat the projections. You can only beat the props. You can only beat the Vegas game totals so much. It's going to be pretty close to, spot. We don't know. So we want to just build lineups that if we're right about what we're thinking might happen, that we put ourselves in a position to win a tournament. And one of those ways that we're achieving that is by understanding ownership and leverage and building in unique ways where I don't win anything if the whole world is taking Josh Allen to Stephon Diggs and it costs a fortune and it's like 40% owned or 30%. I'm not saying that that's going to happen this week. When that does happen, you don't win when you play those guys because they go off and you're watching your lineup. You're like, oh, I'm not even moving up. I'm like, I'm staying in the same place. Like, oh, wow, a touchdown. My quarterback and my wide receiver just scored. Watch the leaderboard when that happens. Like, and you don't really move up much. And you're like, oh, looks like too many people have that combo and it's not helping me when it's scoring. So,
yeah. And that needs to be said more often too. Like one of the reasons I think DFS Army is just so much better than anyone else is because your personal interpretation matters a lot. So like at DFS Army, I think we talk primarily about three things with tournaments: ownership, salary, and upside. We talk about those three things. You won't hear someone saying this is, these are the players to play this week. Don't play anyone else. We focus on those three things to try and inform you so your perspective and your lens can kind of process that information and play them how you think they should be played. So don't get too caught up on a single guy. Focus on those three pillars. And then, I think that will set yourself up for success moving forward.
Every once in a while, though, we get the all-in.
Every once in a while, true.
We do get the all-in plays once in a while.
It's the exception, though.
Not the best week is when there's two all-ins and we just lock button it. Speaking of DFS Army, if you guys are watching this and you're not allowed to, or I don't know, somebody's writing a crazy comment that distracted me, but if you're watching this and you're not a member of DFS Army, go get signed up right now. We've got a free offer page where you could just sign up for any number of different DFS sites and you get a free month of DFS Army. Check it out. So check out the free offer page, or if you just want to hammer it, go get right into it. Promo code GEEK is 10% off right now. So you could do the VIP, which covers all sports. You could do NFL only, just an NFL subscription, or Core 4, which covers all the major sports, but not the minor sports, like, majors being baseball, basketball. What's the major sports? Is hockey a major sport anymore? Football, of course. Is hockey a major, or is it golf? I'm not even sure what the fourth on the Core 4 is. I think it's hockey. But covers the majors, or you get VIP. Go check it out. Promo code GEEK. You get 10% off, of course. Sites need to, I just want to read this, and we'll be back to good. It's up to the player to figure it out. Progress is happening, right? You can't hope to go back in time. I wish this was 2012 when I was owning the head-to-heads on FanDuel when it was just invented, and I go up against people who'd put a $4,500 min salary 0 in their lineup because they want to fit their favorite players in there. And I was like, wow, this is like the easiest money I've ever made in my life. And people are not even putting players who score in their cash lineups. I want to go back to 2012, but we can't. The thing is,
even back then, though, the top guys were dominating way worse than they were today, though. So,
oh yeah, because
you gotta be careful what you ask for sometimes.
No, because it was, if you weren't we figured it out. Back in 2012, we figured out the most amazing. My blog, that's how it blew up. We figured out this innovation, Josiah. You know what the innovation was?
What?
That if you looked at the game total and it was high, that it was likely to produce a lot of fantasy points.
Yeah.
That was revolutionary.
Yeah.
So then I had an article called Geeks Vegas Lines where I would just show what the game totals are and been like, hey, this one has a 52-point total and it looks close. Let's use players from this game. It hasn't changed. Now we're like, hey, that game looks good. Everybody's going to use it. Ownership's too high. Let's not use anybody from that game. It completely flipped. But back then, all you needed to know was who the high game total was, and you were smarter than 90% of the field that didn't even know where to go to find the Vegas line. It was not readily available. So, times have changed since 2012. It's hard to believe it, but that was an innovation in 2012, and no one was looking at it. Or if they were, I didn't know about it. It certainly wasn't doing it in the fantasy football community that I came out of. No one was like, oh, what's the total? No one, that was not a thing. Anyway, so get signed up at DFS Army VIP. Also, don't forget to check out our sponsor, No House Advantage, promo code ARMY over there. You get the overlay contest props. You can use the DFS Army research station to inform those prop picks. So you just look at the prop, you look at it against the projection in the research station. It's not that hard to put lineups together on those things, and it's not that hard to win with lots of overlay. Of course, if you've watched this and you're hanging with us this long, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. I'm looking at our analytics. It's 15% of people that are watching these videos are subscribed. Give us a subscribe. You'll be informed when these videos come out. We're doing nonstop DFS and fantasy content on this channel. So you want to be subscribed. You want to check it out. You want to be around when we go live. That's the best way to do it. Video, all that good stuff. And, any final thoughts, Josiah?
Yeah, I'll add on Sunday for DFS Army members. We'll have Burns and Upper Slad doing the pre-lock Q&A, answering DFS Army members' questions. We have some new blood in there. Burns is one of our smartest coaches. He's going to bring a lot of great insight. So excited for that to pop off for some DFS Army members this week.
That is going to be awesome.
It'll be Sunday from 11:30 a.m. Eastern time to 12:30 p.m. Eastern. So be on the lookout for that.
I love it. And BobbyWow, you got any last minute advice for this weekend?
My final thoughts are to tune into that show. It's going to be awesome. So make sure you sign up for DFS Army and get
Burns, there. I'll be there. Burns and Uppers Lad, both on the same ticket. That's dangerous.
Josiah said one of the smartest. Burns might be the smartest.
Burns is so smart. I don't even understand half the things he's talking about.
Right. I know, right?
I read his article. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is math. The maths are exceeding. You have to be an engineer, basically. But who let Uppers out of the game? Anyway, he's not supposed to be seen. He's only supposed to be heard. All right.
But yeah, I think it's good to get a lot of different insight from all the different coaches we have, just because I think everyone has a different perspective they come from. So it could be exciting to get a little bit more from Burns.
This question: what's the key to winning a showdown on FanDuel? you have to leave salary on the table because you're tying if you're spending the whole salary cap. You're not winning if you're spending it all. You're just tying. We got another question, so we're going live stream. You could balance the players. Dom Station somewhere I can chat with someone. Yeah, Kellen, in DFS Army Discord, we're constantly talking about this. I've done, 15 live streams setting up the Dom Station for various slates. We did a back test stream for the entirety of the 2021 season just before the season started. Last week, I did a live stream set up for NFL Week 2 where DFS Army members could set up the Dom Station with me, run it, ask questions in real time. So my suggestion is jump into the live stream. If you're not around when we're doing them, make sure you're in DFS Army Discord. But if you're not around when we're doing the live stream, then just watch it and replay. But it's best to do it live stream and be there so you can be running your lineups and ask, oh, I'm not getting that result. What are you doing different than me? We are all about teaching how to use these tools. Dustin, you got to get in our Discord. If you're a DFS Army subscriber already, you just have to, let me show you how to do it, but you just have to connect your account. You're going to click on Discord right over here, and there's a way to sync it, and you'll be in our chat. We're constantly talking. A lot of DFS Army subscribers, they don't know that we even have a Discord. Or they're not in there because they don't know what Discord is or whatever. They're boomers. I don't know what. Discord is where the lifeblood of DFS Army is happening. We have a team that's constantly in there. We're always chatting. The members are chatting with each other, helping each other. And the entire staff is in the Discord constantly. I don't show up for an hour on Sunday for office hours like other people. I live in there. I don't have any other life. I'm here all the time. I'm either in the cave crunching numbers or in the Discord hanging out with the DFS Army VIPs. So you got to be in there. You got to be in the Discord if you want to kind of experience everything that we're doing at DFS Army. And if you're already subscribed and just haven't figured out, you got to click the button right here and sync your account so that you can see all the premium channels. Our regular Discord does not, if you're not subscribed, you will not see our actual Discord. So with that being said, this went longer than I expected. For Josiah, for BobbyWow, for myself, good luck this week, everybody. We'll see you at the top of the leaderboards. DFS Army subscribers, Players Club, Saturday, about 12:30, 1 o'clock, hanging out. We're going to we're going to build lineups together. We're going to strategize the whole thing. We'll get it down pat. So be there live with your Blue Moons, Saturday, 1 o'clock. And if we don't see you there, we'll see you at the top of the leaderboards. Deuces, everyone. Good luck this weekend.
Nice.